I've come outside to film today's video. Naturally, you can't really do a green fragrance video without being amongst the green. And the lawn's looking particularly decent at the moment, so but we're not going to focus on the lawn. I'm sitting on this old rustic chair, which used to actually be brown, but it's got so weathered now that it's nature's taken it. But I figured it'd be a nice spot to talk about the fragrances. What is that? Is that a plantain? Is that a... It's not a dandelion, but there's a little notch there. So I'm going to put my fragrances there just because it's adorable. And as some of them are mossy, it's kind of perfect, really. So yeah, today I really wanted to share a very specific category of fragrances that I'm really just very much in a very tight rotation in. It's all I'm fancying. I'm in a real green phase. I'm in the green phase of my life. I don't even know what that means. But I seem to be very drawn to... I've always loved mosses. I've always been very attracted to moss, lichen. Something about them just seems magical. But it's extended as far now as I'm looking out for fragrances that have a decent moss, or as far as having a beautiful green element that really takes me somewhere, that feels beautiful and poetic. So it's been a while again, and I'm always very nervous to get back behind the camera because talking about fragrances just doesn't seem to come naturally, and I find myself waffling and not making any sense of a scent. I generally not focus too much on notes because generally when I smell something, it's going to be colours and shapes and images that just don't make any sense to anyone. So it's really hard to get it into words that make sense. So I'm going to give it a go today, see how I get on. First one I'm going to talk about here is a scent from Roja, and I had the decant of it forever, and I've always really loved it. I never really thought it was quite for me. It felt too grown up, too serious, too just too much for me when I was always just reaching for easy, sweet rose berry types of fragrance. So this is called a Midsummer Dream. Bottle is probably my favourite currently in my entire collection. It feels it in life. I don't know if it comes across on the camera, but there's just something so splendid and playful while still being incredibly substantial and elegant, and it kind of means business. This is very heavy, weighty, you know. Let's see if we can... Is it going to fit in this little nodule? There you go. A Midsummer Dream, obviously inspired by the Shakespeare play A Midsummer's Dream. Actually, I think it's a Midsummer Night's Dream, obviously being very fantasy fairy based, where Titania, the Queen of the Fairies, and Oberon come together on that midsummer night and create all sorts of havoc and bring mischief and magic, and the fairies frolic and confuse the humans. So how would that inspire a scent? What kind of scent would be inspired by A Midsummer Night's Dream? Well, it had to be green. It has to be... There's something very magical about moss. It's just like nature's magical carpet, and it's just absolutely beautiful. And something bright and lively, energetic. It'll have to feel deep and mystical, and that's exactly what this does. It's a rich, citrus, aromatic, woody fragrance. And it's very resinous as well. It's the resinous part which makes it very substantial. Very substantial and a little challenging at times. There's a ton of notes in here, so it's very complex, very interesting. The opening is bergamot, grapefruit, elemi. I've actually only listed the notes here that I felt were relevant to what I think is the main body of the scent. It's definitely incredibly bright in the opening. It's illuminate. It is absolutely luminous. Like there's this, I don't know, there's this white moon glowing up from beneath it all and projecting all the colours up into the sky, because it's something dark about it as well. So it's a little bit mystical. But the elemi in here, which I think is a tree resin, which comes off a bit lemony, citrusy, it's really dominant. It's really what I always notice the most. Vetiver, there is moss, there's cardamom, a little bit of a warm aromatic spice, but very smooth. And you've got cedar. And I feel like the carrot cedar, that's not my favourite note in the world. I'd never pick it out in here. It's so rich, this scent. But there's something a tiny bit savoury in the base, I think. So maybe that's the carrot seed. But orris is a really big player in this, and it's so buttery. I don't think there's one note that creates this rich, resinous, not oily, but thick gloop, like a magical primordial gloop that's glowing lime, like a lime glow. And it's deep, and it's unknown, and you want to tread carefully, but it is just so magical and gorgeous. So overall, yeah, aromatic, green, luminous, woody, but with this very unusual main body of resinous, like rich citric resin. So it's kind of outdoorsy without anything there being familiar. It's not obviously mossy, it's not obviously anything. There's this opulent, resinous richness that comes from another world. And I just get lost in this scent. It's absolutely beautiful. So that is a Midsummer Dream from Roja Dove. It's one that I'm really feeling at the moment. It's just doing its magic, and it's a stunner. So there's that one. Whoops. So the next fragrance I want to talk about is really, it's got me really excited. It's got my heart aflutter. It's a new discovery, although I've always wanted to try one from this house. And this one that I've got is just a sample. I actually got this by accident. I've always wanted to try a fragrance from Rogue Perfumery called Mousse Illuminaire, because I know that I think it's classed as a fougere, but there's just something about the way people talk about it, and it's just such a great fragrance, great perfume with a beautiful moss that I wanted to at least try it. And I ordered what I thought was it. I actually bought the wrong one. I bought Chypre Siam. Another great one with moss, so I thought, well, this is probably still worth trying anyway. So when I received it and first sprayed it, there's my sample, it's actually almost empty. I thought it was very animalic, very strong, not quite what I was hoping for. I've got an idea in my head, oh God, I can't stand this, something. I've got this idea in my head of a moss fragrance that doesn't exist, this moss thing. And I've got an idea of what I would like from a fragrance. So my expectations are very high, not very realistic. I'm trying to match everything to this idea, which is just a recipe for disappointment. So I need to stop doing that. So Chypre Siam, of course, is a Chypre. It's a beautiful, rich Chypre. It was created by Emmanuel Cross, who is the founder of Rogue Perfumery. And the angle of Rogue Perfumery is that they won't be compliant with IFRA regulations of oak moss. I don't know if it's just oak moss, I think that is the one, isn't it? So the oak moss concentration in these fragrances are at a higher level than they're legally supposed to be, because it makes for a better scent. It's obviously lending itself to the vision that they have behind the scent. They won't be limited by regulation. Manuel's inspiration behind Chypre Siam, I just read this, I thought it was kind of cool, was that he was in his garden picking kaffir lime leaves for a curry. These kaffir lime leaves are really pungent. They've got a beautiful pungent fragrance. And as he was picking them, there was this breeze of jasmine from across the garden from another plant. And the mixture of those two ingredients was so beautiful that he said he had to make a perfume that captured those two things. And that ended up being Chypre Siam. But like I say, Chypre Siam is actually quite animalic. There's civet, we have spices, benzoin, leather, sandalwood. I definitely get the kaffir lime. There's basil in here, so it's quite aromatic. So the kaffir lime, basil, and actually the civet are a little bit of a challenge in the beginning, because I feel like they're playing off of each other and slightly not clashing, but they're not blending. And you sort of think, wow, this is going to go into a really heavy, dirty direction. And I wasn't sure about this, but as it mellows, you get all this beauty from the oak moss. You get this. It's not orris, obviously, because that's not in here. But there's something like orris in the base. It's just this smooth, plump surface where all these other things are kind of just growing. The oak moss smells magical. It's such a beauty. It's deep. It's not a big green scent. It's quite a brown scent. There's a lot of earthiness. It's a little touch of the florals of the jasmine and ylang ylang, stopping it being too dark. And it's quite a three-dimensional. It's just a beautiful perfume. But the way all the notes play off of each other, they bring in this, what I'm craving, this magical, deep, not foresty, but earthy, woody, mossy, just a little world of my own that I can escape in. It's a very connecting scent. Like, if you want to feel connected to earth, if you want to just disconnect from all the hustle and bustle of life, social media, and just get back to your roots, this is a scent you want to do it with. It's stunning. So an absolute beauty. Chypre Siam from Rogue Perfumery. So the next little beauty that takes me into a mystical direction, while still being quite elegant and classy actually, this one is called Faun. And I have mentioned this a lot. I have mentioned it for a long time though, because unfortunately it's now very much discontinued. There was a small batch made by Thomas O'Brien, who has the channel here, Ouch 110. What a great nose he has. This is his first fragrance, and so far it's his only one that he's created. I have a backup bottle, thank goodness, because this scent is so good. It has a vintage, it brings the beauty and appreciation of vintage fragrances in how it's been structured, I think. I don't remember all the notes because I can't remember where they were listed and I can't find them. But off of memory, I think there was tobacco in here. There's some different herbs, aromatic, various different types of herb. Definitely some, I think there was lotus and jasmine, and some various types of wood. And it makes for a rich, earthy, woody, very outdoorsy kind of scent. There's a beautiful dried sort of grassy feel to it. Not hay, not as far as going hay-like, but grass has been picked and it's starting to dry out. It has this sort of slightly soapy feel, probably from the white flowers. I think that was aldehydes actually. You do get these soapy aldehydes, but they're not dry and waxy, and they're just so uplifting. They really brighten the scent up. It's a very smooth, it's a really good fragrance. It was so well made, so beautiful. And it does, I guess the name Faun helps with, you know, if you're an imaginative person, it's going to take you somewhere where you're going to think about the fauns and the forest and magical creatures. So the balance between rustic and elegant floral, pretty vintage elegant floral. I can imagine this faun who's just waking up. He's had a long sleep and he's been laying on dried grasses, dried flowers, and he's a pretty faun. He's, you know, he's quite flamboyant actually, and he's made a bed of all this beautiful dried husks and flowers and debris, and he's absorbed all that scent. So there's not an animalic smell here, but there's just something a little bit dark and rustic in there, making me think of this lovely faun. But he smells of all this magical bed of dried flowers and debris. So that's Faun. That is Faun, and it's an absolute beauty from Thomas O'Brien. So my next one's actually another sample, and it's by Chanel. I've been in a very much a Chanel investigative mind lately. I'm starting to appreciate aldehydes, and really it's because I've discovered a fragrance from Chanel that has blown my mind, but I'm leading up to that one. I'm going to end on that. This particular one is one of their lighter offerings, so it's from the Les Eaux collection. They're lighter, fresh scents, all inspired from various locations. A lot of aeroplanes in the sky today. Various locations, I guess, that inspired beauty and aromas, and one of them was Edinburgh, or Edinbourg if you're French, but it's Edinburgh. And this is their greener. This is a green offering for the line. It's a woody, aromatic citrus. Now, if you smell many from this line, they all kind of have a very light, very clean, citric, aromatic style. They all kind of fall into that line. They all differ very slightly. I've now tried all of them, which is great. I really enjoyed trying them all. But I always had my eye on Edinbourg because it had that green offering. Based on so many reviews, I was expecting more of a fern, like, you know, a cypress, which is the main green note, the cypress. Yeah, I don't know, Angus. More of that green, leafy touch. But when I sprayed it, I got more of a bright green citrus kind of thing. It's much more fruity than I thought it was going to be. But where that's coming from, I realise, is between the notes of juniper berry and cypress. There is this idea of something that's very, very bright green and juicy. Not quite bergamot, because it's not sweet. It's like more of an interesting green citrus, which obviously isn't citrus, is it? It's the idea. But it brings a mossiness, a slight earthy, dirty mossiness, just slightly over this green hue. And although it's very refreshing, it's very, very light, a slight little twinkle of interest from this mossy nuance. It's got my attention. It doesn't last very long, so it's one to overspray. And I've actually asked my husband for a bottle of this for my birthday, so I'm hoping that's what I'm going to get. I'm really excited to get this one, but it's going to be a lovely addition to what is currently this little growing green fragrance collection. Because it's very, very light, but it's very bouncy, uplifting, revitalising, refreshing, but just slightly different from all the rest. Just that hint of that green just makes it just what I'm looking for. So I wanted to mention that. So this next fragrance is probably quite a big step away from being something that has been deeply inspired, deeply thought out, classic perfumery. It's maybe quite a big jump away. Nonetheless, I'm really enjoying this one, and it's still giving me this green energy. Okay, it's giving me something that I am enjoying, and it's taking me somewhere that I obviously want to be. So it's actually from the Charlotte Tilbury collection. I don't know why I'm laughing. Everyone has their opinion. Fragrance is very, very subjective, and it speaks to you on an emotional level, then it's doing something for you. Now, unlike the claim of her fragrances all having this deep, magical, emotional energy, all fragrances have that, obviously, but she's obviously marketed that in her favour and used it as a marketing angle, which is, you know, whatever. People do that all the time. Aside from all that marketing hoi polloi, I did go ahead and purchase one called Green Energy. Green Energy from the Emotions collection. This is genuinely the only one from that lineup that I had any connection to. So I personally do enjoy these bottles. I think this is actually a really lovely bottle. I don't mind this magic potion design at all. It's a nice glass bottle. The lid's a bit cheap, but you know, it works with the design. It's this is what we got, it's what we're working with. It reminds me of like a little wizard. I like the design of it. I like everything about this particular one. It's actually a really nice bright emerald green, but for some reason it's coming off quite dark on the camera. So obviously the branding claim behind this particular fragrance is to give you magical energy, to release that magical awakening side of you through this emotional connection. So it's kind of benefiting from a lucky coincidence that I'm already feeling a little bit magical with my green energy. It's matching the mind frame I'm already currently in. So this one has notes of bergamot, myrtle, cypress, seaweed, jasmine, frankincense, palo santal, cashmere wood and ambergris. And although I haven't given the rest of the fragrances a fair wear, I just was very focused on this one. From what other people have said, comparing it to the rest of the set, this is the most interesting. Perhaps a little bit more effort went into this composition. So aside from the woody, foresty elements, that's the idea behind this, is to take you to this magical forest. I don't go to a woodland, I don't go to a forest when I smell this, because the ambergris and the seaweed is what really stands out to me. It's not dominating it, but I feel like it's leading the way. I go immediately to more of not exactly a seaside, but a watery environment, a watery setting that has a salty element in the atmosphere. But if the sea was to leak into a pool or into a little setting surrounded by trees, if that seawater was to trickle into its own little cavity and create this pool, that's where I'll be with this scent. There is a more of a synthetic molecule, like a water molecule. Seaweed and the ambergris is just bringing a little bit more believability that it is in this sort of watery setting. You get the Palo Santo in here. Do I get the frankincense? Yeah, there is kind of a dark green. There's a dark green tingle in the back of my nose in this one, so I guess that's the frankincense. Up front, I get a salty water molecule that takes me to, like I say, this little magical little setting, fueled by the sea, but in a quiet, remote oasis. I really like magic energy, and I think I'll get a lot of use when it gets even warmer around the summer. I just think this is a beautiful green offering that suits me for my sort of summer. So that is why I'm including it. That is why I was connected to it. And here it is, Magic Energy from Charlotte Tilbury. I'm going to end this video on a fragrance that has pretty much taken the crown of my entire collection. It's set the bar incredibly high for anything new that I'm discovering. I said I was leading up to another Chanel, and that's exactly what it is. It's from the Les Exclusives collection, and it is Coromandel. This is the EDP. I put off trying to video a review of Coromandel because sometimes there just aren't words. It could be delivered through poetry. I don't know. This is how I feel about this one. I feel like just words can't do it justice. From my perspective and how I perceive this scent, it is just absolute a thing of beauty. If you know this fragrance well, you're wondering why I put it into a green video. It's not classically green. It's woody, it's creamy, it's powdery. It's so beautiful. I wanted to try Coromandel for the longest time, just based off of the idea of it, off of what I hoped it would be. That white chocolate note can be very hit and miss. I can see from people's reviews, you either get it or you don't. It's not like a main player. And I was curious to see how that would play in a Chanel fragrance. Chanels don't typically do sweet, a bit austere. They are very elegant, they're very clean, they're very unliteral. And when I say that, I want to apply that to this, because I feel like this is a bottle of nuances, constant flow of nuances. Now, when I first sprayed this, I actually wasn't that sure. It opened a lot more dry, grassy, not scratchy, but a little bit more rustic than I was expecting. I'm just going to spray it again because in the opening there are top notes of bitter orange, citrus and neroli, and they're all woven into a very grassy feel. They roll out a sort of subtle citrus carpet, and then quickly following that, gliding down this citrus carpet with majesty and elegance, are these creamy, woody other notes: white chocolate, benzoin, amber, incense and musk. I'm looking at my notes thinking, where's the woods? Where's the woods? It's patchouli. I haven't written down patchouli. It's the most obvious thing here. I tell you, if all patchouli smelled like this, I'd be wearing it all the time. I'm walking down this carpet, you've got this patchouli, and it's the most clean, ethereal, airy, angelic patchouli. There's no edges on this at all. It's just glorious. The very last ingredient, you've got white chocolate. Now, this is airy. It's subtle. It's like a little billow of cloud just moving behind them all, and it lays itself down on top of everything else, like the most delicate dusting of white chocolate. And I do get the white chocolate personally. It makes the wood so appealing. Everything's coated in this beautiful light white, powdery white chocolate. Everything is so so balanced and blended. Coromandel is the reason I want to try so many more Chanels. Claire from the Smurfy Girly channel has very kindly sent me a load of Chanel samples. Beige, Rue Crambon, number 22, Cristal. I recently got a sample of Jersey. I'm trying them all, and they're all beautiful. They are. I appreciate all of them, but nothing will come close to Coromandel. Nothing. The way this airy, woody cloud that's slightly got this rustic nuance of grasses, it's just something grassy and rustic, and it does sit in this category that I mean in my mind of this gentle, outdoorsy, idyllic setting. They all work together. When I started collecting fragrances, 4 years ago now, getting into this crazy little hobby, I have bought so many, I have sold so many, and I have changed my mind so often on fragrance. I'm so changeable with everything. I've never been so enamoured and so connected and just sure about a scent. Every time I wear Coromandel, I get compliments. I've never had compliments like I do with this. I never get compliments. I like compliments. Who doesn't? Come on. I mean, I'm not saying I wear it for compliments, but because I'm so taken with Coromandel, I love having that little bit of acknowledgement back. Like, it's a lovely scent to be associated with, and I do enjoy having the odd compliment. I have since ordered a sample of the Mousse Illuminaire, which I'm really excited to try. Anyway, thanks for watching as always. Hope you enjoyed the video. That is all. Take care. Over and out.